Control L.
So, good morning, everyone. I'm Sara Althubaiti, and I'm today to present my work with my team, Professor Robert Handorf, and our group research scientist, Shinai Kafkas, about ontology-based concept recognition using word embedding. So, first of all, our motivation to do this work is that we know the importance of biomedical ontology and how they become widely used nowadays. And also we want to recognize the data in text and the knowledge, the data knowledge that captured by those ontology. So here we develop a generic machine learning method that can recognize labels, synonym in any given ontology in order to extend those ontology. And we demonstrate that as a case study in disease domain using disease ontology. So as a background, we know that ontology classes have many labels and synonym. So here we have a label Ebola that belong to this disease class and have two synonyms, Ebola hemorrhagic fever and Ebola virus disease, and both of those synonyms we can find it in a text. So with that, we introduce a novel method relying on machine learning, as we said, to identify whether such a word stands for some ontological class, based on the lexical variant of that word and semantic of the class and the context. And this will help us, we aim to do three things. First, to find a new label or synonym for existing class in such an ontology, or to find a new class that doesn't cover by this ontology, or to find modeling mistake. So this is our workflow. We start by, we have 1.6 million open access full text from Europe BMC. And after that, we annotate this corpus using what is it annotation tool that take each entity in a text and normalize it to its corresponding ontology class. So here, as we can say, we have those three words. The first one, which the abbreviated term of a disease, and another one is a full term of a disease, and both of them normalize to same class ID in a text. After that, we use Word2Vec in order to take each word in a text and ontology class and see the occurrence of them within a context window. So here, for example, we have a window of 6, and we take each word and convert it using Word2Vec into a vector space. And after that, we use those vector as a feature in order to train our classifier that we use it, which is neural network, in order to classify whether such a word is a disease or not. So here, for example, this disease ID, we know that is labeled with a class 1, which is a disease. But for example, we discover that Ebola is also classified as a disease based on the context that Ebola come with. And also the other remaining word, symptom, similar, it's of course not a disease. And this is the whole workflow. So for that, we conduct 4 classification experiments. The first one is the basic one, the binary. Either it's a word is a disease or not a disease. And we aim here to either find a new label or synonym of existing class, or to find a new class that doesn't cover by any given ontology, or here disease ontology. So let's see an example of that. We have term aphthosis. Aphthosis in our corpus is a regular word, it's not a disease, but our classifier classify it as a disease. And with a manual analysis, we discover it could be a disease term that recently not covered by a disease ontology. So that will help us in order to extend the disease ontology. Another example is lattices. Lattices is by itself, it's a word to describe the shape of something. But our ANN classify it as a disease. But with manual analysis, it's not really a disease by itself. But when it comes like within a disease term, it could be like describe that disease, like, for example, lattice degeneration. And another word, which is a regular one, surgery, it's not a disease, and our classifier classified it as non-disease. And with that, we got a high performance, higher than 96% in terms of F-score. Another 3 experiments that we did it, we want to try that for disease classes. So first, we start by doing that for infectious disease, which have like 4 subclasses: bacterial, fungal, viral, and parasitic. And after that, we want to increase the complexity of the problem by trying to another disease class that have more subclasses, like anatomical disease, which have 12 subclasses. And here we aim to find the modeling mistake. So let's see an example of that. So for example, we have a disease term, erythrasma, that disease ontology say it's anatomical disease, is not an infectious, but our neural network classify it as a bacterial. So, and with a manual analysis, we discover it could be added as a bacterial infectious disease in an ontology, beside its anatomical. Another example is rhinitis. Rhinitis also anatomical disease, is not an infectious, but our neural network classify it as a viral infectious disease, but we cannot claim it that is exactly a viral infectious disease, but it could be like a symptom of many viral infectious diseases. So that's better. And with that, we also still have a high result, 96, higher than 96 in terms of F-score and AUC. And the last experiment that we did it is we combine both classes, infectious and anatomical, in order like to experiment like the complexity of our method and how it can like robust to do like a higher thing. So, for example, after we combine both of them, we have like 16 classes. Here, 17 is because we have 16 of anatomical and infectious, and the one class is like referring to other diseases, not infectious and anatomical. And we still got a high result. So, as a conclusion, we develop a general method in order to extend any given ontology and finding a modeling mistake, and that based on machine learning that utilized with word embedding. And we demonstrate that using infectious disease and anatomical disease classes within disease ontology. And with that, we discover a new term which can deliver invaluable data for ontology development. For the future work, we want like to try for more number of disease classes, and we also want to try it for another ontology rather than disease. And also we want to extend our method to recognize a multi-word term referring to a class, because here we just like recognize a one word. So for example, we know that a lot of diseases term contain a multi-word, not just a one word, like Ebola, for example. And yeah, at the end, I want to thank my professor, Robert Handorf, and our Bio-Ontology group at KAUST, and also my research scientist in our group, Shinai Kafkas. And thank you, and please feel free to come to my poster, number 572. Thank you.
So we have time for quite a few questions.
Hi, really cool work. I was wondering, since you want to extended to other ontologies, would the similarities be based on a seed term that's in the ontology?
Again, please.
Would the similarities calculator be based on a seed term they call any kind of ontology class? Would then other terms that you found, rhinitis and others, are they based on similarities with the word embedding from these seed terms?
Okay, so we like to discover, look for another term that not annotated with disease ontology. I mean, it's not exist in as a label or synonym in an ontology.
Yeah.
And then we look for it and see if it could be like a new label or synonym of existing class or a new term, a new class, I mean.
Alright, so you're doing some kind of filtering, they get out
Yeah.
like miscellaneous words and stop words in the text, and then you look at each term that you classify and see how similar it is to an ontology class term.
Yeah.
Is that how it, so that's how it would be transferable between ontologies, right?
Yes.
Alright, cool. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
John?
So you gave some nice anecdotes about where things could be improved in the disease ontology. Do you have any count, or do you have an idea of how frequent these things are? How big is the disease ontology? How many places might they make such mistakes?
Okay. I didn't have an overview of that, but I think that would help not just in disease ontology, but any other ontology. Even not find a lot of mistake, but maybe find something a new thing when we combine a machine learning method to that. So yeah.
Hi, nice work, Lars Juel Jensen, University of Copenhagen. So again, touching on the issues with disease ontology, what you're seeing, isn't it very much an artifact of disease ontology insisting on being a hierarchy or a tree rather than being a directed acyclic graph with multiple inheritance? Because really, if you have a bacterial disease on the skin, it's not mutually exclusive whether it's a disease of anatomical entity or whether it's whether it's an infectious disease. Really, it's both.
Yeah. So we didn't hear say it's that's an anatomical, it's just a bacterial. We want to discover to add a new information to that it could be something and something. Yeah.
Sure, but I may be mistaken, but if I remember right, the disease ontology have decided that they don't want multiple inheritance, and then you're bound to end up in this situation, right? Because if you annotate it as being the other instead, you would also be wrong, because it is really both.
Yeah.
But then it is also a little bit incomplete.
Yeah.
It is a really consistent problem. We had the same problem in our ontologies.
I mean, when you insist that you can't have multiple inheritance, you're bound to end up with that.
Yeah.
Is Lynn Schrimmel here? So she was here yesterday. I think she had it in her presentation that they do have multiple inheritance, which is somehow inferred. And so there was a presentation yesterday. I wish she was here to confirm that. I don't want to put words in her mouth. But I think she had on her slides that they do have multiple inheritance where some of them are inferred, and it would be really interesting to see how this is done. Okay. Any more questions? Yep.
Okay. In your the software that extracts the entities out of the text, analyze it, I think.
You want what is it? Annotation tool?
No, what is it? Yeah. So can you talk about are there any errors introduced by that? Because even these softwares have some errors associated with it. They're not perfect 100%. Right. So how do these errors add up when you use those softwares in your work? For instance, for the concept recognition and suggesting ontology-based recommendations. So how do these errors add up when you're doing it in your software?
So what is it? It's like based, dictionary based. So whatever in that dictionary, it will be annotated. So for example, here Ebola, it's included in disease ontology, but it's like not a one word. So what is it not annotated into disease ontology? So that's it's a problem. So because maybe it's a dictionary based, so we need like to explicitly put what we want in that dictionary to be annotated. So maybe we look for another tools that can like cover.
Yeah, I would actually suggest
Yeah.
trying to pick up. There are a few disease annotations from PubMed articles. I think there are corpuses where entities have been annotated. So picking up that corpus will help validate how well the pipeline elements are, how well they perform, and overall effectiveness of the, and to measure the overall effectiveness of the tool. Yeah.
Independent of the tool annotation tool, you're going to have errors because you are doing things mining.
Yes.
You will have either false positives or false negatives. Here we are using and the dictionary-based method because we would like to normalize the annotations to the ontology. So it doesn't matter the method. At the end, you will have false positives and false negatives, and this will be propagated, of course, to us.
Exactly, which is why we need to measure in a way to give some sort of certainty and when we provide results in any pipeline for that matter. Yeah, good comment.
Okay. So let's thank our speaker again.